I am sorry that I haven't uploaded over the last couple of months. As I'm sure you are all painfully aware, there's a lot of stuff that's been going on that we are all wrapping our heads around and trying to figure out and still coming to terms with. And I'm sorry that I have not been able to adhere to any schedule. I'm still very new at this. I'm still very, very raw, trying to figure out what I'm trying to talk about, what I hope that you guys are interested in listening to. And there's a lot of self confidence and a lot of scheduling conflicts and a lot of just issues to work out in general. And it's difficult to wrap your head around those things. But one thing I wanted to share with you was something to help kind of inspire you, maybe, I hope, throughout all of this. I've been through a lot of trials and tribulations too. I can't ever say that my story is the same as anybody else's, but I can tell you that this is a task that we all have to get through together. And that's the only way we can get through it. And it's hard. It's hard to admit that we all do need each other, or especially in this society, which has always prided itself on rugged individualism more than anything else. No, there has to be there has to be collective action involved. That's the only way we ever succeed. You don't succeed simply because you will it. You succeed because you need other people. So if I can help in that in any way, hopefully this will be a tiny part of that. I wanted to share something that my grandfather wrote about towards the end of his life. Before he died, he was dealing with dialysis, and he had kidney failure and renal failure, and it was a lot of fun to deal with all of that at the time. But he was a very, very driven individual, very, very prone to boredom, kind of like me. And he did not really like it. Can't imagine why. But he, towards the end of his life, decided, I'm not going to do nothing at all or just watch TV while I'm doing dialysis. So he taught himself theoretical physics. And he wrote this book, The Eternal Now, which is a very, very dry read, I will tell you. My grandfather was not exactly the most entertaining writer, but I do hope as a project to record this as an audiobook and share it and at least give a little bit of flair and maybe a little bit of explanation about certain concepts in it. But it is, at its very core, at least a very interesting poetic read when you read between the lines about existence and about where we are cosmologically, as well as what we can do for each other. And one really interesting concept he wrote about in here was about something called the recurring universe. Now, keep in mind, this is about the same time that Stephen Hawking came out with his very famous books on what exactly is the Big Bang. The universe in a nutshell, for example. And my grandfather was very intrigued by those ideas. And he really wanted to explore what that would mean philosophically. And because he had a background in philosophy, go figure. And he wanted to make sure that other ideas about what that would mean for the universe as a whole, as well as what we would interpret that as, would not go unchecked. And so in his studies, he stumbled upon this really interesting theory called the recurring universe theory. I'm going to simplify it for you because I hope that when I get to the audiobook that I can actually read this to you properly. But the idea being that basically there are three models of the universe. There is the Big Bang, which continually explodes until it reaches a state of entropy, and all heat in the universe and energy basically dissipates, and thus literally is the eventual heat death of the universe and just continually expands like a big balloon. No popping of any kind, just goes for infinity. We don't know why, we don't know how, it's just going to happen. Then there's the idea of the Big Crunch, that literally all matter in the universe conglomerates together to form basically supermassive black holes, and then eventually closes in on itself into a gigantic singularity. Interesting idea. But there's the third, which is the recurring universe theory. It's not exactly likely according to the math, but it is still poetic, and I love it because of that. Not just because it's my grandfather's work, but it's also because I just love the poetry of the philosophy behind it. The idea being that if you reach a specific state of temperature equilibrium, and every atom in the universe consists to a specific set of motions, literally every single time, that the universe will continually expand and contract in on itself, which is a really cool concept, because that means the idea of the perpetual motion machine, for example, a paradox in engineering, is something that could literally happen because the universe itself is the perpetual motion machine, which means in the end that for our universe there is no concept of time. The universe just simply is. Which is a cool thing to think about, because that means that every single action that happens throughout the universe has to happen. Which means that at this exact moment, even though we are going through these horrific things, for us to be able to say that the universe exists means that all this horrible stuff that's happening has to happen. But the flip side of that is that we're talking about destiny then, right? That everything is predetermined. Well, not necessarily. We don't know what is going to happen in the future. We can predict, but we can't accurately predict. We can go with only with a certain amount of certainty. But to literally explain on a quantum level every single atom's action, that we're not at any close point of doing at all, and in fact may never be able to. So that means that for every single person, for every single existing moment in the universe, things have to happen that way. Otherwise, the entire universe could not exist. It's an added concept of the rules of matter, that matter simply can't be created nor destroyed, it can only be changed. So it takes your existence as you being here, not just as a mass of atoms, but that in that specific set of time and motion in space, that the universe could not exist if you weren't there for it. Which means there is an inherent value to every single person and every single experience that is going on. And the best part is that we can change it. We collectively can change those things for the future, because we don't know what the future is. Even though it may all be determined, that does not mean that we have to give in to fatalism. We can still determine what exactly is supposed to happen, simply because we don't know. And as a result, you can change your circumstance. You can change the circumstance for another person. You can change the circumstance for your children. So at this point, make the change. Go out and do the things that can actively help everyone around you, because everyone needs it right now. I send this with its message of love. Make the change. Go out, vote, volunteer, help, donate, whatever you have to do. We can change our circumstances. Love you guys.